Unemployed and Afraid acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on and of the land where you, the listener, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and extend our respect to any First Nations, Aboriginal, and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today, acknowledging that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the messy middle of being out on your own and starting over with the people who've done it. I'm your host, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into today's story of starting over. So grateful to have your ears for this episode today, and I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're taking good care of yourself, your health, and your headspace. Starting something new, or even thinking about it. Wow, what a journey. As part of this journey, you may have found yourself admiring the success of an artist, a designer, a business person, a coach, thinking, you know what, I reckon I might be able to do the thing that they do. Maybe it wasn't even a conscious thought, but more of a sense that you could do it if you tried. Well, imagine just jumping 2 feet in and going for it, deciding to become the very thing you admired just by trying, stumbling, failing, succeeding, and working it out as you go. Pretty inspiring, hey? My guest today, she did just that. It's the fabulous founder and self-taught jewelry designer of YCL Jewels, Fabienne Costa, making me flex my accent muscles. I'm still not quite sure I nail it. If you haven't been exposed to this beautiful brand yet, check it out. They're killing it with gorgeous pieces finding homes around the world and a huge community of fans. Fabienne has so many diamonds of advice in her story, pun intended. So if you're on the edge thinking about going for the very thing you think you might want, I hope that by the end of this episode, you're ready to jump in. So much love to you. Take good care of yourself, and I hope you enjoy the chat. My guest today is the fabulous Fabienne, who is self-taught as a jeweler and is designer of the beautiful jewelry brand YCL Jewels. The pieces Fabienne creates are inspired by the art in every day, and I have no doubt that the story we're about to hear is going to inspire us all, as this incredible brand was created after Fab left her career as a nurse in aged care to pursue her passion for making jewelry. YCL Jewels is a brand that is both beautiful and intentional, loved by hundreds of thousands in Australia and across the world, with Fabienne recognised as one of Business News Australia's top entrepreneurs under 40 and Women in Business, Aspiring Women in Business Award on the Gold Coast. Her curiosity is leading her to grow from strength to strength. In preparing for our chat today, I also learned that Fab doesn't mind a sneaky swear word, so I think we're going to get along famously. Fab, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Thank you so much for having me.
Such a pleasure to have you. Your brand in YCL jewelry is absolutely stunning. Such beautiful pieces. I can see you wearing some today, of course, because we're on video, and it's just wonderful work. And I'm so looking forward to hearing about your journey being self-taught and your journey into the business. But before we get into your fantastic career story, let's break the ice a little bit. Tell me, how would your adorable pet pooch describe you?
When I read this question, I absolutely loved it. And I really had to have a think. How would he describe me? Oh, Paul's quite quirky himself, and I think he definitely appreciates a quirky environment. I think he would describe me, I'm looking at him right now, as a loving mummy, I hope. Yeah, we're a bit of a quirky household. So it's, we've loved seeing him thrive because he's a rescue. We've had him for about two years now. So yeah, I think I just really very much let him express himself in whatever ways feel natural for him.
Don't they just have the most fabulous personality when you let them shine and do their thing?
Very much so. I was just writing a little quote for a journal post we're releasing just regarding our support of just a local animal charity down here on the Gold Coast. And I was just writing about how he's thrived so much. You know, we got him when he was 2. He'd come from a really abusive and neglectful background. He didn't know how to play with toys or eat treats. He was scared of the beach, and 2 years on, he's just the most confident, loving, still very quirky. He's got some interesting habits where, like, where did you learn that, mate? But yeah, he's just such a loved pup now, and he's really thriving. So yeah, I feel like that's a very aligned question with what we've been doing this week in our team.
Brilliant. That's so wonderful to be able to have him from a rescue. That's so special. And to be able to use your business as a wonderful platform to give back in that way. I can imagine we were about to get into your story, but I can imagine that feels very aligned, bringing all those things together.
It does. Yeah, it does. And I think that when we were smaller, I think it's really easy to kind of see what the larger brands are doing in terms of giving back. But when you're a smaller brand, you can't always, there's other ways that you can do it without having to actually hand over money that you might not have, or resources you might not have when you're a small brand. So it took us a few years to be able to align with organizations that we thought had stories and messages that we wanted to share. But I also just allowed the time and tried not to get too caught up in, oh my goodness, like what are we doing as a brand? Because if the day is meant to come where you're able to give back, whether it's a smaller amount, larger amount, whatever it is, it's the perfect time. And I think it's really important as a business owner to not get too caught up with, there's so many ways you can support your local community. It doesn't have to be through money every time. So yeah, it takes a while to be able to give back in that particular way. So yeah, I definitely just let that flow as it was meant to.
Yeah, I love that premise of letting things flow as they're meant to. It's a wonderful way to live. Take me way back before you were the founder of YCL Jewels. Who were you?
Who was I? I was a 21-year-old. I was in the middle of a Bachelor of Nursing degree. I was actually 2 subjects away from finishing that degree. I had just come back from LA, actually. I had been pursuing a career in music for quite some time. I went to LA to do some stuff with that. And I did this incredible program that I was accepted into, and it was all about songwriting and releasing music and writing music and all of that. And what I took away from that was self-development and business strategy, out of everything else. And I was starting to really lose my passion there. It wasn't an industry that I wanted to move into, yet I found LA so inspiring. The people, the way that they think about life and think about opportunity, I found that it's very different to what we can experience here in Australia, which is a lot of tall poppy syndrome. In LA, everyone just wants to support you. They want to support themselves and they want to support you. So yeah, I was jam-packed. I would think I was doing my nursing degree, doing my music, and everything was kind of just crashing around me because I just felt so unfulfilled. And being 21, you're completely reckless. I had a great secure job as an aged care nurse where I specialized with elderly that were experiencing dementia. And I'd been doing that for 7 years. So I had this beautiful secure job, but once again, starting not to feel fulfilled there, not feeling fulfilled with my degree or with my music. I had been making jewelry just as a hobby since I was 13. And when I say making jewelry, I have never had any technical formal training in design, silversmithing, goldsmithing. I'm talking I used to thread some beads onto a piece of wire and call it a necklace. So, I think it's such a testament to sometimes we hold ourselves back because we don't think we have the skill set. If we're curious and we're willing to learn and we're resilient, you can achieve anything. And, obviously there's some jobs that require a degree like a doctor, but I think that in the creative realm, I think we really hold ourselves back. We're thinking that we need to have all this education or all this study or all these formal training. So yeah, I'd been making jewelry since I was 13. And then I went to a market stall one day when I was 20. And I just saw another designer selling her jewelry and it was so beautiful. And I was I think I bought a bangle for $35. It had a clear quartz glued onto it. And I was looking at it and I was I could make this. I would love doing this. I always loved jewelry and the meaning that it holds. So I turned to my partner and I said, I'm going to do it. And he said, you should do it. But I don't think he realized that I was really fucking serious. So
wow. And that must have been really exciting in that moment to think I'm going to go and I'm going to do this. And at that time, I imagine your day-to-day work was a little bit full on, maybe a little bit overwhelming at times. Tell me what that was like before you delved right in.
Yeah, it's I look back at it now and I'm I don't know if I could do that job again. I'm just way too empathetic and way too emotional now. But I think when you're younger, I don't know, it wasn't that I wasn't empathetic. I just think I looked at things a little bit differently, and I saw the help that I was providing. You know, I think there's such stigma sometimes around elderly, and I've always had this tender, soft place in my heart for them. And especially when they're going through something like dementia and they're transitioning from once caring from themselves, once driving, something as simple as just feeding themselves, to slowly seeing themselves disintegrate in the mind, the family watching this. It's such a devastating process that requires such care and consideration. So a lot of what I saw and what the residents that I worked with were transitioning out of their homes because obviously their dementia had become quite severe. They weren't able to look after themselves. They were, potentially a hazard to themselves or to their family. So, but I just loved it. I can still name all my residents. I was met with so many confronting circumstances. Death, injury was just a part of my day when I was nursing. And I look back at it now and I loved it so much. But I think that we get to that point where we can, especially if we're in tune with ourselves and we're listening to our bodies and to what our soul is saying, there just came that time where I just knew that my passion had died a little bit for the job. I think that there's a lot of people in the industry that are quite unhappy for whatever reason, and the culture in the facility I was working in was horrific, quite a bit of bullying. And I think it really helped me kind of navigate, if I was ever, someone's manager, this is how I'm going to treat people, or the kind of culture. I think it's helped me build a foundation in which we forge the culture at YCL, because our team culture is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And it's such a beautiful place to work. So yeah, I think every single time something happens in your life, we don't know then, but it either shapes something for the future or is molding something so much bigger than what we could have ever imagined.
Yeah, that's so true. And so that moment you're standing in the markets, you're standing there with your partner and you turn to him and you say, I'm going to do this. What happens next?
Crazy. Even thinking about it, I'm quite a nostalgic person, so I'm constantly reminiscing. And I think that, it's crazy to even think back to that moment because I had no idea what was lying ahead. I'm quite, manifesting is very much part of my day, and I have quite a wild and vivid imagination. So I had all these ideas, but never could I ever have comprehended in that moment that 9 years later I'd be here talking to you about my journey. So pretty much after that, because I was 21 and reckless, I had to quit my job. I had to quit my Bachelor of Nursing degree. I had to quit it all. I couldn't just try to do a side thing. That just wasn't part of my journey. So I hit the ground running, and I don't think anyone really expected that. I had to break the news to my mum that I was going to quit university, and she was horrified but completely supportive. She knew that she has this saying that it's quite crass, but I can pull things out of my bum. If I put my mind to something, she doesn't know where I get the energy or where I get the knowledge or the information or whatever it is. She's like, Fab, how did you just pull that out of your bum? I'm like, I know.
My mum says the same thing.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's quite a skill. So I just started to research. I had no idea about wholesale, about ABNs. I was buying all of my beads and all of my findings at retail price at a really expensive bead store in Brisbane City. But I had to quit everything and put my all into it. And that was just part of my journey. It brought a lot of challenges down the track, but yeah, it was definitely just what I had to do in the moment.
Goodness, I can imagine that would have been very overwhelming at any age, but particularly at 21. The word wholesale is certainly not something that you're even thinking about at that stage. And then trying to, I'm just taking a guess here, but I imagine you had a stage where you had to then recreate products and restructure business lines to facilitate that wholesale and then look at options down the line. God, that must have been hairy.
Funny now, I look back at it and I was just, I don't know, I think 21-year-olds now in the Gen Z generation, they're a lot more savvy. A lot of them own businesses themselves or are supporting small e-com businesses because it aligns. But back when I was 21, the landscape was different. Instagram was still chronological. That's how far
Bring that back.
Right. So I think 21-year-olds this day and age are a lot more savvy. But you know what? I don't know if knowing more actually equates to more. at times. You know, I feel like because I was quite naive, yes, it did bring challenges, but I was just so curious. I was in such a mood of opportunity and wonder and possibility. I didn't look around at the landscape and think, oh my goodness, but what about this brand or this brand? I really just stayed in my lane and did my thing, and I wasn't really concerned. And definitely had it caused challenges down the track, but I think it's all about your attitude and your mood, how you approach those challenges.
Yeah, so true. And how did you start to, I guess, approach learning the skills that you needed as you went along to progress that love of jewelry design into a business?
I think the biggest thing was I just started attracting these incredible women around me. At around the 1.5 year mark, I had an opportunity to stock YCL pieces in a store in Brisbane in Paddington called Showroom. And I was quite savvy. I negotiated free rent, but I would work there 4 days a week for her. And as part of this community, I became so close with the owner of Showroom. Then, you know, there were so many other women that came on board or that were just there because it was also a co-working space. And I really just soaked up their knowledge. And all these women back then were late 20s, early 30s, all had businesses themselves. And to this day, I just think that they're some of the most amazing women I've ever met. And they really shaped my early and infancy years of YCL. So I think it's so important to learn from people that have already done it and learn from people that have made those mistakes, and don't be afraid to ask. You know, when I was starting YCL, I was trying to like put my feelers out there with other jewelry brands, and people were just so held their knowledge or their failures or what they had learned very close. They were really guarded, which is completely fine. Everyone has had different experiences. It's not like, you know, we would be sharing confidential information like where we get our jewelry made or anything like that. But it's what has been the catalyst for me offering free one-on-one mentoring now to other women in business, because no one would just, like, especially in those early days, I found that no one was willing to part with their knowledge. Like, we've all learned from somewhere. You know, if we believe that abundance is everywhere and there's abundance for all, I think it generates such a different energy than guarding everything so closely. And obviously there's boundaries there, but I think that being able to learn from women that were so generous with their knowledge and teaching me, you know, I was only 22 at that time, 23. I was so young. Like, I was being taught about how to, you know, like photography for e-com, how to write press releases, how to write EDMs, you know, how to push the brand out with digital marketing. And it was all this completely new concept for me, especially because my background was nursing. You know, my background was quite like medical, and like e-com and business was never something I thought I would even be interested in. And yet now it's something that is such a revered skill set and something that I think is so vital moving into the future, and something that I just enjoy so much more than I could have ever anticipated.
Yeah, and it takes me back to what you said when we started our chat about how much we get held back by the need to have the qualification, the paper, the statement that says that we're entitled to be the people we are, and that can translate from both a creative execution but also through to business, you know. So I've definitely had that thought myself, you know, if I had an MBA or if I had a this, and then I would feel at the end of the day, putting yourself out there and just trying and learning and failing a bunch of times just teaches you so much. And not to discredit anybody who has those wonderful qualifications, that's a wonderful journey to have, but holding yourself back because you don't have that is can rob the world and yourself of some pretty fantastic experiences. And I'm interested in tackling the steps to get YCL Jewellery up and running and happening. What was that steepest learning curve in bringing that to life?
Oh shit, there's so many, like, and I think every year, and even now, you know, I don't know, sometimes people can look at a brand through rose-colored glasses and be like, it'd be so easy, they have all their ducks in a row. No, as you grow, it gets fucking harder. It's far more stressful. You've got a team that you're responsible for, like, and that is the most important thing for me, and I take that extremely seriously. So oh gosh, I think product to market fit is a massive one. Understanding your audience it's so easy to just design. As a designer, I think, oh, I would like this, but is it actually commercially viable? Are people actually going to pay for that? And not only that, is your community that you have cultivated with the brand actually going to pay for that? What are they going to pay for that? Is it in the right color? Is it the right style? Should it be in an earring, a necklace? Like, it's constant data analysis, feedback gathering. So I think that's a big thing that I learned not early on, probably about 5 years in. You know, people don't always want what I want. So how as a designer, especially because I founded the brand, so I have this very intrinsic connection. It's just like this visceral connection to the brand. Over the years, I've had to remove myself. Like, I've had to tear off the Band-Aid and look at the business from a completely third party view. It's not me anymore, you know? So that was a big learning curve, still learning there. Production, you think you have it all worked out, then COVID hits and inflation hits and huge delays hit. So there's been so many things. How to manage cash flow. We're a completely 100% cash flow based business. We have no other directors, investors, no loans have ever been taken out. So that comes with a big stress as well, huge stress. Being a sole founder as well and a sole director can be very, very lonely. And we hired our first brand manager in March of last year, and that has been so incredible. Just having that support and someone else to bounce ideas off. I didn't realize probably how lonely I was and how the weight of the business was starting to really weigh on my shoulders and actually impacting how I felt about what I do. And now I just feel totally, completely reinvigorated for the work that I do because I have that support. It's not just me anymore making these incredibly large choices and decisions on behalf of the company. I've got support there now. So yeah, so many things. And I think it's so important to just know that there will be things that you learn along the way. We'll never know everything. And if we try to, we'll just completely burn ourselves out with overwhelm. I think there's something so powerful in staying really, really open and really, really curious and being like, I wonder what's going to play out here. You know, I wonder what the possibility is here, because there's forever ebbs and flows, especially navigating a business through a pandemic. It has been wild.
That glorious little pandemic, didn't it just throw us all a huge spanner in the works? I love what you said there about a perspective of hiring a brand manager and how that helped you get some perspective, playing that back to somebody who may be at an earlier stage of business, even just finding someone outside of yourself, your loving partner and family who probably love you but get a little sick of hearing your stories all day long and helping you. Finding some sort of business ally to help bounce things off and help you grow, whether that's a coach or something like that, I can see a lot of value in how outer perspective and fresh perspective coming in can really help you grow in that space. It's a nice reminder. Actually, it's one I've had myself a few times in a few different ways. The universe is very much not quiet. So yeah, I'm hearing messages that finding your crew and your team and getting people to support you is an important part. And I would love to know, do you remember your first sale? Do you remember the first time a human you didn't know purchased? Tell me about it.
Oh, not who didn't know, but I remember our first sale. It was a friend.
Yes.
Oh, was it?
Love those friends.
Yeah, she was a friend, but she wasn't like a close friend. She was more kind of like an acquaintance that I just had met through social media. And we had this ring called the compass ring. And it was a ring that where I had like these bronze plates, and I would glue these pear-shaped rose quartzes to this bronze plate, then stick it on like a ring band, and it would all be just glued. And we would call it the compass ring. And it was like our hero style that would sell really well. And we sold it for $35. And someone bought that, and we were on Etsy first, and I had the app on my phone, I think, and I heard that little cha-ching, and which the day I turned that off, because we were getting so many of them, was also an extremely poignant day, because I was like, I'm never turning this off. And then one day I was like, fucking turn this off. Yeah. And she had bought it and she didn't tell me. And it was, and it took 3 weeks for us to get our first sale. 3 weeks, which might not seem like a long time, but if you've poured your heart and soul into something, 3 weeks is a fucking long time.
Yeah.
You're sitting there being like, I fucked my life. What have I done? I'm a failure. Everyone hates my designs. I hate my designs. I hate this ring. Why do I even design it? It's not even good. You're just going through this cycle. Yeah, it was an incredible day.
Oh, that would have been so exciting. I didn't know that Etsy has the little cha-ching on there. That is so fun. That would be so enjoyable. And yeah, 3 weeks in a small business, where even before it's a small business, when it's just an idea or a creative execution that you're putting out into the world, 3 weeks is like a year. It feels like a very, very long time. We all go through those little quiet phases with any kind of project, and goodness me, are they loud and scary and terrifying.
And I think they can make you doubt where you've come from, where you're going, but if you're aligned and you're happy and you are open to change, which, if you run a business, you have to be constantly open to change and be able to pivot and adapt extremely quickly. Yeah. But it's those moments, we had this conversation prior before we're recording, the universe gives us these little nudges, and sometimes they're loud, they're sometimes or often extremely uncomfortable. They put us through deep pain that can manifest as chronic pain in the body or whatever it is, and spiritually you're doubting everything that you've done. You're doubting everything that you've put your mind, your heart, your blood, sweat and tears into over the past however many years, months, days. But it's those moments the universe is saying, I just want to test you. I just want to make sure that you're still listening. I just want to make sure that you're still aligned. I just want to make sure that you really want this. And that can stretch for years sometimes. But it cracks us wide open. I say that owning a business and running a business is just like holding a mirror up to yourself constantly. You see things about yourself that you're like, oh, shit, like I don't know that I did that. Or you get feedback from your team. You're like, oh my goodness, like thank you so much. As hard as it is hearing that in the moment, a big way that I operate is we give a lot of feedback in our team, and I'm the first person to set the example of how to receive that. And it's great when you can get some constructive feedback and you can learn and grow, because we don't know what we do all the time, or we don't know how we're impacting someone else. And we have to create that safe space for our team, especially to be able to voice those concerns. And it's been so beautiful to watch some of our team members who probably were quite scared and nervous and anxious to receive feedback now thriving in not only receiving it and growing and learning, but also being able to offer that up as a gift to someone else.
It is a real gift, and it is a real challenge to learn to take it on board in a really positive way. But I love how you touched on creating the right kind of safe space and environment, and allowing that to be a safe experience to hear and to give that feedback. That's the first challenge before delivering any kind of feedback, is making sure that the environment is safe. So
yes.
I'm sure you have some very happy staff members with you. And promoting the world of YCL jewelry, back then, and hearing that it's on Etsy and that gorgeous chronological space of Instagram before they bloody ruins the thing.
Yeah.
Was that where you started? Did you have any other tactics that you tried that maybe weren't so successful?
Yeah, we did like some paid advertising. I remember when British Vogue emailed me on my personal email, and once again, totally naive. And you're like, oh my goodness. You don't realize that they actually email everyone and probably targeting very, very small brands because they're going to get that exact reaction. It was $1,400 to advertise. We did a photo shoot for it. Probably got absolutely nothing for it, because our target market is not reading British Vogue, and we weren't even shipping to the UK at that point. So there was little things like that we tried that were complete failures, and I didn't even have $20, let alone $1,400. So I think I had to borrow money for that, or my partner worked extra shifts or something. Because remember, I didn't have a job. I quit my job. So I had no money. I had no savings. And I started YCL with $70 in the bank account. So yeah, there was that. That was an absolute failure. Then we did some wholesale, which was great. But I'm glad that I reeled that in pretty early on, because our structure now, we have one local store on the southern end of the Gold Coast and northern New South Wales that stocks YCL, but other than that, it's not part of our structure. We're able to keep our RRP of our products quite low in comparison to some other jewelry brands, because we don't wholesale. So it's made us quite an exclusive brand. You can only get our whole collection on our website. So I'm really glad that we went that direction, because that's worked really, really well for us. You find sometimes brands, if they start with wholesale, it's very hard to peel yourself out of it. But if you're structured correctly for it and that's part of your strategy, then that's great. But that wasn't what we wanted to do. And then we got into digital marketing. And like I said, it was a very different landscape. Influencers were very new. They were cheap and they had incredible return. Yes, that was really fun to navigate.
It's definitely changed a little bit now, hasn't it? I'm hearing lots of whispers around in business communities and things that I follow along with about, what is going to be the next platform that allows brands to truly launch. And lots of arguments for the different platforms that are out now, for and against. I know that I while I'm able to fall into a little bit of a TikTok hole, I'm not sure launching a brand in that space is entirely recommended. But is there anything that you wish you knew back then in the beginning?
Everything. Everything.
Naturally.
I wish I knew how to take good photos. I wish someone told me that taking photos of jewelry on old parchment doesn't look cute. I wish that someone told me that if you wrap wire around a crystal, it's probably going to break. Yeah, so many things. But it's all part of a journey, I think it's brought us to where we are today. It's definitely ingrained a few fearful patterns in me that I've had to really be mindful of to make sure that I'm not being held back because in the past we did this and it didn't work, because the landscape of e-com is changing so quickly and you either stay curious or you're going to fall behind. So yeah, I think there was so much, and still to this day, especially now with having a manager on board who has a very different skill set to what I have. I learn every day from her. I learn every day from our team, from our agencies that have incredibly niched skill sets. And it's because I want to learn. I want to grow. I think it's easy sometimes to kind of sit on the sidelines and then you get a little nudge from the universe saying, hey, time to realize you've dropped the ball and just to get back up again. So yeah, pretty much everything I've learned along the way from others, from my own study, from my own failures, mistakes, learnings. And I think having the business now for nearly a decade, we have so much data that we're able to pull upon and use, which is really great. We have a lot of historical data, which is incredibly valuable when you're trying to forecast the next 6 to 12 months.
And when you have those moments where you're looking at the business and you're making plans and you're thinking about what you want to do next, are there certain places you go to for either creative or for business inspiration?
I have 2 incredible mentors, Tony and Paula, that are a constant source of inspiration for me and guidance. They're also dear friends of mine, so I feel very blessed. So they're incredible pillars in my life, not only professionally but personally. Inspiration to our team. We are incredible collaborators. Our team is still very small. We're only a team of 8, I think. We collaborate so well and we work so well together, and nothing inspires me more than having a full day of brainstorming with them, because we just bounce ideas off each other. I leave feeling so uplifted, so elated. And I think as a founder and as a leader, it's so important to create space for your team to innovate. Just because someone works in marketing, it doesn't mean they can't have their say in e-com or customer service. Or just because someone, oversees all the team doesn't mean they can't have their say in the design and the production side of things. So we do that really well at YCL, being able to create space for people to share their ideas, because people have great ideas. And it's been in those moments of just simply asking the question of, what do you think about this? We've been able to create some of our best selling styles simply just based on the feedback of our team.
Oh, that's so brilliant. When did you decide to get the help from or the support from the mentors?
When I could afford it, which was about maybe 5 years, 6 of starting the business. Then an opportunity came up for me to partake in a program that was running for about 11 months, I think, but it was quite an investment. And I'm not easily swayed. I don't want to read about how to make $1 million in a day. That's not the way that I operate. I like to grow slowly. I'm grateful for every single year that we have. I'm not looking to, have this conglomerate business that is saturated everywhere and what you can get everywhere. So the fact that I aligned with this particular organization that I'm still with now, called Liberated Leaders, they're based out of Sydney, it obviously went to show that what they were offering was something really unique and really special and really aligned. So yeah, when I could afford it, and prior to that, once again, like I said, I called upon the incredible community of women around me that had just been there and done that. So I think don't be afraid to seek that support. You hope that people, not always, but you hope that people are, you'll attract the right crowd that will offer that support and that guidance. And they come and go. They come as they're needed, and then you might find that you don't need them for a little while, or you'll have someone new come into your life, or potentially you'll play that role for someone else.
That's so very true about surrendering. And we often hold on to the people or the practices and the plans that we have for ourselves, but the universe tends to have different plans, and as soon as we commit those to paper, something comes along and shifts that. So yeah, surrendering into that journey is so very important. And with that in mind, are there any daydreams that you hold for YCL Jewellery, or are there any plans that you're gently placing out to the universe?
Yeah, definitely. We are so excited about the space of customization right now and how we can offer that experience in a virtual way. We are so excited that we'll be releasing a new collection called Symbolism mid to late March that is a modern take on your classic charm necklace, that we all have grown to love, or we've worn one in the 90s or the early 2000s if you're a millennial like me. And this has been in the works for nearly 2 years, and we've perfected the technology of one of the findings, which is what we've called a sim link that allows you to interchange your pendants on chain. So we're so excited about it. I think that the space of personalization and customization is so incredible. We all want to reflect a little bit about ourselves. We all want to tell our story, And I know for me, for jewelry, it's the way that I share my history. It's the way that I tell my story. It's the way that I honor other people's history. I wear one of my nanny's wedding rings. It actually fits my ring finger perfectly as well. And that's how I honor her story. And that's how I honor the years, the decades that she wore that ring, to honor the marriage that she had to my Poppy. So I think jewelry can play an incredible part in our story and then be passed down as heirlooms. And that's where we see ourselves. That's the quality that we work towards, whilst also being affordable for our audience. And I think we do such an incredible job of that. So yeah, symbolism is something we're very excited in. We're excited to kind of move into more of the customization space, even with engraving and some more solid gold jewelry. And yeah, I think the world is our oyster. It's really exciting to see what's happening with fashion tech, and especially with jewelry. And yeah, we're just along for the ride.
That's so fantastic. That sounds glorious. And yes, I love that sense of nostalgia that you can have with a piece of jewelry. I have also a ring of my grandma's that ironically fits my ring finger perfectly as well. And you are inspiring me to make sure that I have that. I've got it tucked away in a safe place because I'm so scared to lose it. But
no, wear it.
Yes,
wear
gotta
it.
get it
I think,
out.
yeah, I think it's something that I really loved when I bought one of my first designer pieces maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it was a Louis Vuitton luggage thing, like a little
gorgeous
suitcase. I was like, what do you call that? And they said to me, don't leave it in the dust bag to just sit in the corner, use it. And the first time I used it, it got rained on and it's got rain spots all over it. But I absolutely loved that, because I remember buying that piece of luggage. It was such an incredible milestone. And now I don't have many designer pieces. I don't shop that much. But when I do buy something that's a little bit of a higher price point, I make such a sacred ceremony out of it, because it's marking a milestone. It's marking, or I say, okay, if we hit this target in December, I'm going to buy this, or I'm going to save up for that. And personally, for me, that's what aligns. That's what feels really good. But they said to me, don't leave her in the dust bag. Use her. She's going to get scratched. She's going to get watermarks. She's going to get stains, but it tells her story. And that's just stuck. with me. So yeah, wear it, honor it, and just enjoy it.
Goodness, isn't there a wonderful analogy in that, in terms of ourselves? We often protect ourselves in such a way to stay safe, to stay guarded, to stay, completely in perfect condition to the outside world. But those raindrops, those watermarks, those scratches, those things that we pick up along the way on the journey just make us all the more special. So it's a beautiful analogy in there.
I love that. I'm actually going to journal about that after. You just give me this whole thing to just reflect upon now, Kim.
Oh, I love that you journal. Journaling is just such a special time to spend. I don't do it often enough. I do a gratitude journal every night, just 3 things and future things, but just exploring ideas is such a gift. So I love that you do that. It's such an important thing, I think, whether you're in business or just doing general human things. It's such a wonderful experience.
It is.
It would be remiss of me not to reflect back on something you said earlier about offering a mentoring service one-on-one. What a fantastic gift to offer back to the world. How did that come about?
Simply because I started to think that I had the time. I started just talking about random things on my personal Instagram and people seemed really interested. I'm just thinking, no one gives a shit about what I'm saying. But they actually did. And it turns out I was actually offering a lot of value to people, but being on my phone or replying to DMs gives me great anxiety. And it's just not a way that I wanted to interact with people. So I had a few people asking me, do I offer mentoring? And I was kind of like, oh, well, if they think what I have to say is relevant to them or aligns, I'd, be more than happy to share my time. So pretty much now I take one mentee a week, about an hour and a half, and I'm just a sounding board. It's completely informal. We do it over coffee and me shoving my face with probably avo on toast. But it's looking at how some of these women have grown their businesses has been incredible. One of the women that I mentor has grown her business by like 70% in 3 months, simply by actioning a few key things, and I guess I could look at something and be like, oh, that's just common sense, right? Or that's just common knowledge, but it wasn't to me 7 years ago. So how could it be? Some things will be to some people, and some things are just this. They have complete epiphanies, just like I did when I was taught something, or as I do now when someone says something, I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't even think about that. So it's my way of giving back. I come from a nursing background. I love to be of service, but I'm also extremely guarded with my energy. I put myself first and foremost. If I'm not operating at my optimum, I can't give to anyone else. So I have a lot of white space in my diary. I'm very mindful of overloading myself socially. I call myself an introverted extrovert. Mm-hmm. So I love to be around people, but they also drain the fuck out of me. So I need to really balance myself. So that's why I can only take one a week, and I'm usually booked out for 2 or 3 months ahead. And it's been incredible watching these women thrive. And I feel honored. I feel absolutely honored to be a small part of their journey.
It's such a gift to give. On that note of giving back, how can the listener and I support you on your journey as you move forward with YCL Jewellery?
Oh gosh, just go and like a photo, sis. Right now with Instagram, the engagement's all over the place. Yeah, every like, every comment, every reshare, we see it all. Our team engages or interacts with every single like or comment, whether it's a like back or something. We reply to every single DM. That's a big part of what I believe equates to incredible and exceptional customer service, along with everything else that we do. But please, just any engagement, it goes such a long way. And that goes for any small business. Right now, the landscape is very interesting and changing really rapidly. And there are some small businesses that are, Instagram is making it quite hard for their beautiful products to be seen. So any like, any comment, it goes such a long way.
It is so true. I had this conversation with somebody earlier this morning about the fact that regardless of your audience size, you might only be reaching 10 to 20% of those humans who have shown interest in being part of your brand. And that can be really soul destroying at times. But, you know, even the simple act of sharing something to your story. I know before I went into my own world of creative executions and putting things out into the world, I didn't realize it at that time. But the simple act of sharing something that you like to your story, doesn't have to have a story or any context, but just allowing new people to find brands that you're interested in is just so very impactful. And the metrics of saving something that matters, of actually commenting if you think something, it just matters so much. I know we all have limited time these days and we scroll and binge, you know, consume so much. But yes, I hear you wholeheartedly. That is such an important thing to do for people and for brands that you care about. So I will make sure that we have the links to your fabulous website, but also your fabulous socials, both yourself as a human and YCL Jewellery, so that the listeners can experience more of your wonderful energy on all of the platforms. And it has been such a pleasure to hear your story today and hear you share in such a wonderful way. I'm so grateful that you spent this time with me today.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel like I've spoken about a lot more than what I usually do. I've touched on things that I don't usually talk about, which has actually been really nice. It's like I said, I'm very nostalgic. So just to be able to think back to these moments, or like, you know, you brought up, like, how did that feel in that moment? I don't think I've thought about that for so many years. So being able to think back on that, it puts so much into perspective. And I think it just makes you even more grateful for the whole journey, you know, as tumultuous or challenging as it can be at times. I think it's definitely reminded me to just celebrate that. So thank you for opening up that space for me.
Feeling inspired? Thinking you might want to connect with some more amazing humans about the journey of starting over? Come join the Unemployed and Afraid community on Facebook, where we'll be creating more opportunities to learn from each other. Simply search for Unemployed and Afraid on Facebook and request to join. And of course, come hang out with us on Instagram too, and slide on into my DMs to let me know what you're thinking of the pod. If you've joined me for a few episodes, you'll know how much I adore a rating and review. It helps so much in helping the pod find more ears that need it, but in also giving me the feedback that you're enjoying the podcast, what you might like to see in future episodes. It's just really, really helpful. So if you get the time, drop a little star rating or a review. I will be so very thankful. Enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you're doing.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the stories of starting over with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you liked the episode and are keen to hear more, please hit the follow button and leave a review. And let's keep the conversation going on Instagram @unemployedandafraid, where there's more goodies and links to today's show notes. See you there.